Hello everybody, welcome back to Payment Trends by KoreFusion. This is our 4th episode, and I am Jan Smith, co-founder of the company. Today we're going to talk about Jordan and CliQ and the exciting payments landscape and real-time payments development in that country. Joining us today is Sara Ba'ara, strategy consultant here at KoreFusion. Sara has an expertise in payments and fintech. She's joining us from Amman, Jordan today, and she recently led a series of projects and research in Jordan and for real-time payments. And she's going to be sharing her insights with us today. This episode, as always, is going to have 3 parts. In the first, we're going to break down some facts and figures about the Jordanian landscape and CliQ in particular. Followed by that, sharing some of the insights from our research. And in the third part of our questions, we're going to be looking at the challenges and opportunities within the Jordanian landscape and for CliQ in particular.
Thanks for having me on. So as you said, I'm a strategy consultant here at KoreFusion. I am technically based in Dubai, but currently I'm actually in Amman, Jordan. Most of my expertise lies in fintech, payments, and financial services in the Middle East and Africa regions. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Sara. Let's begin by understanding a little bit of the Jordanian financial services and payments landscape, and in particular, real-time payments and CliQ. What would you like to share about Jordan?
So while Jordan's overall economy is facing some headwinds right now, the fintech sector itself is emerging as a bright spot with very strong growth potential. And that is further supported by government initiatives and investor interest. However, it is important to note that it is still at an early stage of development compared to some of the more mature fintech markets that we've seen in the region. But most notably, some of the key segments that have been coming up here are mainly around mobile wallets, payments, lending, as well as different financial management tools. And just to name a few, you have companies like Madfu'atcom, which cover bill payments, as well as Dinarak, Zain Cash, and Orange Money, which are more mobile wallets. What's driving this growth, aside from the supportive regulatory environment, is really the high smartphone penetration that we see in the country, as well as a very large unbanked population, which drives demand for greater access to different financial tools. And finally, a very young and tech-savvy demographic. These all really propel the growth within the fintech sector in Jordan. However, there is still a significant barrier to greater financial inclusion, and that's mainly due to a lack of financial literacy and understanding that we do see among the people, especially among specific demographics. However, we do see that there is still a very strong appetite for these different digital payment tools that kind of add convenience and ease to everyday transactions.
Thank you. And speaking of ease and everyday transactions, CliQ is a relatively new name in the Jordanian payments and fintech landscape. Can you tell us a little bit about CliQ and why you think and why we see such potential for CliQ in Jordan?
Yeah, absolutely. So CliQ itself is a mobile payment service, and it's integrated into banking apps as well as mobile wallet apps, and it allows users to send and receive money instantly between different bank accounts and mobile wallets within Jordan. So it's very interoperable. Now, some of the key features that really make it stand out as a service here in Jordan is the fact that 1, it's an instant payment. You usually receive the payment within seconds. 2, it has a very user-friendly design that's very easy to use, very easy to learn as well. And it's integrated with these existing platforms. So you immediately have access to it, whether you have a bank account or an e-wallet. And even when you open an account with either entity, you can access it immediately. And within these transfers, they tend to be alias-based. So instead of dealing with cumbersome account numbers and IBANs, you can just set a username or your phone number or even your email address in order to simplify the transaction. And finally, we do see that it covers a wide range of different transaction types. So it can cover peer-to-peer, so sending payments between friends and family, but also online and offline purchases with different merchants, even the disbursement of salary payments or providing family support to any member within Jordan. And just to add on to that, it is free to use, and that is another motivator for Jordanians here.
Of course. And to give a little bit of context maybe around the numbers with CliQ, are there any interesting trajectory facts and figures that you think we should share with our audience?
Yeah, so CliQ has had a significant impact on Jordan's financial landscape because since its launch in 2020, it's amassed around 1.6 million users to date, and that represents a large portion of Jordan's bank population. Looking at last year alone in 2023, CliQ processed around $7.2 billion in transactions, and that represents a very remarkable compound annual growth rate of 1,602%, and that's since its launch in 2020. So again, this just shows kind of the substantial traction that it's had in these past few years. And we do see that there is a rise in the number of times that it's been used, where on average, CliQ users conduct nearly 30 transactions per year.
Well, 30 transactions per year, it may sound like maybe only a modest 2 and a little bit transactions a month, but actually considering when it's launched, that's how soon since its launch, that's actually pretty good and on track with what we have seen in other countries, even for adoption of card payments, debit card payments in particular, in their early phases. So that's pretty good progress to date. And how has CliQ impacted Jordan's financial landscape in general? And what are the factors you think are really driving its adoption and use?
So it has promoted kind of a transition more towards digital payments, and it has fostered a certain level of financial inclusion, especially given its interoperability with mobile wallets. That's allowed those that are underbanked or unbanked to access these kinds of services and to participate in the digital economy. So that has been quite fundamental. And as mentioned, it has amassed around 1.6 million users. However, that doesn't represent everyone who's using that service, because we do see a certain level of informal CliQ usage. And what that means is we've seen individuals who are using CliQ through a family member's account, even though they themselves may not have an account. And from the research that we've done, that was around nearly 25% of underage university students, as well as 11% of unbanked individuals that are doing this form of informal CliQ usage. And what that highlights, Jan, is really a high level of trust and convenience that people are associating with this platform, and it kind of shows how it's driving adoption of this service within the country.
And speaking of driving that adoption and changing behaviors, are there any particular use cases that you think are worth highlighting? And I'll use this as an opportunity also to start moving into perhaps a little bit more of the research that we've done there over the last couple of years and bringing that to light.
So while Jordan is a cash-based economy, we have seen services like CliQ highlight a preference towards being more cashless. From the research, again, that we've done, it's around 20% of respondents that actually favored CliQ as their primary payment method in a situation, hypothetically, where Jordan had a cashless economy. So that indicates its potential dominance within Jordan's financial landscape as a digital payment method. We also see shifting consumer behavior. So more and more people are becoming interested in these digital financial solutions, particularly when you're looking at younger demographics that are increasingly favoring all these different digital solutions. So CliQ here is very well positioned to cater to this trend and to address this very large demographic here.
Thank you for that, Sara. And I'd really like us to get into a little bit of the research we've done there. So I'll start this section by highlighting a little bit of the efforts and then letting you, Sara, take it from here. We've conducted multiple surveys with consumers, with small businesses. We've spoken with banks, with fintechs, and got some insights from the regulators as well. And we've put all of that together and analyzed it and hoping to bring some insights from that. So without further ado, Sara, what are some of maybe the highlights in terms of the types of users, cohorts that we've seen, and the use of CliQ in particular?
From the conversations that we've had, as well as a survey we've done within Jordan, covering around 700 participants, we've seen that around 62% are using CliQ. 28% of those were university students who are using CliQ to receive money from their friends or family, You have 22% who are unemployed using it to receive support as well from friends, family, or others. You have 16% who are self-employed, who use it to receive money from their clients for the different jobs that they do, as well as to disperse money to the employees working with them. And finally, you have around 9% who are employees, also using it to receive or send money, whether it's related to their primary employment activity or secondary employment activities. So these are just very quick data points to show you how integrated CliQ is into primary financial activities, including income and a lot of essential transactions that are part of everyday life. And that just shows how much of an essential service it's becoming and how it's supporting various segments of society.
And as it supports these more segments of society, there's always a human story behind those numbers. And that human story can be very interesting. Was there anything in particular that, through the multiple interactions that you've had in Jordan and exploring CliQ's evolution, that you think are worthwhile sharing and shed light a little bit more on how this human aspect is bringing life to the numbers?
So interestingly, from the conversations that the team and I have had in Jordan here, we've seen how particular segments within society, those that are traditionally very reliant on cash and trust cash the most and have been not so open to other methods of payment such as cards and so on, they've been very, very trusting and very interested in CliQ as a service and have become very quick to adopt it as well. And that includes, again, those who are self-employed, gig workers, part-time workers, basically your average plumber to your construction worker, because it helped them, one, receive payments a lot faster from clients in a very trustworthy and guaranteed way. So it's immediate, it's guaranteed. And at the same time, they're able to pay their suppliers without having to go through the trouble of securing the cash, dealing with the delays that come with these payments, as well as, sending that cash over to the supplier. So it simplified their transactions, both in terms of what they receive as well as what they spend. And accessing the service was very easy for them as well. A lot of them didn't have bank accounts, but they were able to open mobile wallets, and that process was very easy for them. And it was very interesting to see how this trust was built and how more and more people were very open to using this service for these kinds of use cases.
Thanks for that, Sara. So what I'm understanding is that this convergence of trust and convenience is beginning to move people not only in the adoption, but maybe for more than just a one-off or a couple of times of using CliQ per month. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yes, exactly. We're seeing this trust extend the use of CliQ beyond just simple transactions. What we've seen is that nearly 1/5 of our survey respondents are actually using CliQ to receive some sort of compensation or maintenance. And again, that includes things like salaries, gig payments, as well as family support, which is quite significant. And this is especially evident among the 40% of frequent users who are relying on CliQ to receive their primary income. So yeah, we are witnessing kind of a shift in the usage of CliQ from casual transactions or one-off transactions to more regular and essential payments. And that is very significant considering Jordan's young population and their growing preference for these kinds of digital solutions. We also see it amongst the general population where there's just a rise in a cashless economy preference, where around 20% would favor services like CliQ or CliQ itself as a primary payment method in a hypothetical cashless economy.
Thank you for sharing those insights from our research and conversations in Jordan, Sara. I'd like to take the opportunity now to move over to the third part of our questions and conversation, which is to look at the bigger picture and the trends that we think will be coming out of this. And in particular, like with any digital coin, there's going to be two sides to the story. And as much as we've seen the onset of impressive growth from CliQ and positive figures and positive indicators, I imagine there's also some challenges, Sara, facing CliQ. What do you think those are, and what should CliQ be looking out for?
Yes, there are challenges that could potentially impact Click's growth, and they come in the form of three barriers, really. So the first is financial literacy. We do see that there is a need for better understanding of these digital financial tools and these concepts. And this applies across the different regions, but we do see it particularly among the elderly, low-income individuals, as well as stay-at-home mothers. From our research, it was around 11% of survey respondents who were not quite sure where to check their transaction history when it comes to using Click. So generally, there is really a need for more education and improvement in financial literacy in order to increase adoption of Click's payment service. The second is more about comfort with technology. So some demographics, again, do need more support in order to confidently navigate Click's features. So it is quite user-friendly. However, again, the elderly, low-income earners, and people like stay-at-home mothers do require additional support in order to understand how do they use this service, what does it mean when they access different features or set different functions, and just providing that extra level of comfort in using Click as a service. And finally, we have seen that there are some concerns with fraud. So despite how secure Click is, nearly 1/3 of our survey respondents reported fraud experiences related to Click. And that was often in the form of phishing scams or unethical merchants. It wasn't really a breach of the platform itself. So what Click would have to do is basically educate users on how to avoid falling victim to these scams and what to do when faced with a situation of fraud.
Thank you for that. And if we take those tactical needs in terms of saying this is what needs to be done specifically to face those challenges, and then step beyond into a more strategic horizon of how and what would be the next steps for Click, what do you think those would be?
So Click would really need to explore greater expansion among the banked. So 1.6 million users is impressive. However, I do think that it has the ability to reach more and to expand its reach with those who do have bank accounts. Because here within the space, it's already competing with card use, and in some instances, it is coming out on top. So Click could explore this opportunity further and see how it can encourage more and more bank account holders to use its service. The second is wider merchant acceptance. So that was the number one desired feature by the survey respondents that we've spoken to, as well as the interviews that we've had, where they really wanted to see a greater number of merchants accepting Click, especially when it comes to small businesses or street vendors. So Click could really explore this key demand from users and work with merchants in order to accept Click as a payment method. And the third opportunity here is really regional international expansion. So Click can explore integrating with different payment systems, both within the region as well as beyond, in order to facilitate cross-border transactions and really position Jordan as a fintech hub. And the way to do that is through some regional initiatives such as Buna that we've seen within the region, as well as more global interconnected instant payment systems. That is more of a long-term project here, but it's still really a very important opportunity that I think Click should explore.
Well, thank you for that, Sara. So, I mean, it really paints a positive picture for Click and real-time payments going forward. So I guess I have an interesting question here for you. Have you used Click, and what did you find the experience like?
Absolutely. I've used Click quite frequently, and I've loved the experience so far. It is very convenient. You can set up your alias, and getting the payment done with different family members and friends is also very easy. You don't have to deal with having the right amount of change in cash or getting cash and, dealing with the general hassle of cash. It also was a very smooth experience because before you actually hit send, it does present you with a screen telling you the account holder's name and more details about the transaction. So you do feel a bit more comfortable kind of using this service.
Yeah, and I tend to remember also that and hearing you mention this, that this really correlates with hearing some impressive numbers between the satisfaction and and the comparison of click to cash. If I remember correctly, we have an NPS score of 41 for click, and the number of users who would prefer click over cash is at 87%. Am I remembering that correctly, Sara?
Yes, that's correct. And it just shows you kind of the impact that click is having in a very cash-based economy.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Sara. And one last question before we part. Considering that click has this interoperability with banks, with mobile wallets, that we're already seeing it begin to displace cash, it points to a potential scenario where the mobile wallets through click will be going head-to-head with a card-based payment ecosystem. Between the two, and maybe even three if we include cash, where do you think the future of payments will be in terms of the types of tools used in Jordan?
That's a very good question. I think we'll still have that mix, at least in the short term, and cash will still be a very important tool because while click is making headway as well as there is some growing card adoption, there still are some segments within the population that are just more comfortable with cash, more reliant on cash, and again would require further support with financial literacy and technology in order to adopt these different tools. However, we do see click resulting kind of a leapfrogging of card adoption because those who don't have bank accounts tend to shift more towards mobile wallets since the process is easier and it's just faster for them. So it's encouraging kind of a greater adoption of mobile wallets, a greater use of click. So if click kind of continues with its key features and to explore the opportunities that we've discussed here today, I think that it may come out on top when looking at non-cash payment methods.
Thank you, Sara, for joining us, and thank you to our audience as well and joining us on this is our 4th episode exploring the payments landscape in Jordan and click in particular. We welcome you to subscribe and follow other insights as we go around the world following our research analysis and consulting. Thank you very much.